All right, there we go. Good. All right, so thank you for doing this. We really appreciate it. You were very thorough in your notes.
Well, it's
Uh,
for just as much me as you, I guess, because
hey,
it was
listen,
so
that
long
works for
ago.
us. Yeah. So there's like two ways we can go. We've done both for this video. There's sort of the Ouija way, which is we can ask one question and then you talk for an hour. Because that's what Ouija did. And then, or we can just like do a straight up regular interview and ask you our questions, and if there's anything that we miss, we can tag it on at the end. Is there one format that you feel more comfortable doing than the other?
I can definitely talk for a while, but if you ask, I'd probably prefer, like, at least to start, you ask me some questions so I get an
Sure.
idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So, right off the top, I'm going to say that reading your notes, I did smile a little bit because I've had the feeling that Jak II might have been like the game that people didn't want to run, at least for a little while. And like it's one of the first things in your notes. It's like people did not want to run this game, at least not for a while, right?
Yeah.
Like it is the crazy, random, crashy, hard one, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I don't know what people's opinions are on it nowadays. I wouldn't be surprised if it was changed, because if you compare Jak II to 1 and 3 at this point, it's like the other ones are completely broken. So it's weird how it's flipped. But yeah, a long time ago, there was basically only one guy running it. Other popular runners of the Jak games would be like, oh, I'm going to play Jak II for like a week or so. And then they would get burnt out. And they'd be like, oh, this game's terrible. It's too random. And then they would go back to whatever one they usually play. So there was very few people who stuck it out for a while. It had that reputation, like you said, of like always crashing, being too random, which I don't know. I've always kind of pushed for me. Like it crashed. Like I've done thousands of runs, and I think I could probably count on my hands and feet how many times it crashed for me. So maybe I'm just lucky, but it didn't crash that much. And there is some randomness, but a lot of it, I think people have like learned to, deal with that over time, as they do in most games. And they're like, back then, a lot of the randomness was because, like, a big thing for randomness was the vehicles in the city. Like, there's so much travel time in the game, and that's like what a lot of the optimizations used to be, like finding faster ways to get from mission to mission or skipping it entirely, right? And the vehicles in the city are random, so that was a bad thing. But now everybody just like hovers over every wall in existence and goes around the city on the jetboard, so you don't even need vehicles. So like that is gone. So it's gotten better for sure.
Absolutely. You said there was just the one dude in the beginning. That's Tom Jak, right?
I believe so, yeah. There's people that are older than me, but like when I came around, it was legitimately just him. And he was there since the beginning, I think, like near the very beginning.
Talk to me about him, because for all the people that we've talked to, we haven't heard too much about him.
I've never had like any. Well, okay, I've had very few interactions with him. He seems like a nice guy. He seems like he's like the total anti speedrunner, if I could think of one. Like, I think at one point he stopped speedrunning to open a gym and all this kind of stuff. But his English wasn't that good, which is probably one of the reasons why he didn't really speak much to people. But every now and then, I basically learned by just watching his runs really carefully and stuff like that. And near the later end, like when he I guess quit because he hasn't played since, we talked back and forth a little bit, and he was really nice. But yeah, I had most people haven't really interacted with him. They just know of him, and I wouldn't even know how you would get in contact with him now.
I think that there was like, well, so we do know someone who's a native French speaker, right? So they're like on as part of our like team. So we were like, oh, we'll be cheeky, right? We'll just reach out, with the French guy do it. It hasn't panned out yet, but we did make contact. Someone made contact with him, so that's still on. That's like still on the table. Like, what is like what you said he's the anti-speedrunner, right? Like, what is his style? Does he have like does he stand out from everyone else? He basically plays this game until the wheels come off, until he has nothing left to do other than to apparently open a gym, right? Like he has to hit the iron. So, like what is it about him, you know? Or like, do you have any insights into anything like that?
I think for him, I guess the main thing that kind of appealed to me about him was he pretty much did his own thing, like, because, and that might be partly because like he wasn't really talking to people and stuff like that, but he was really on his own. He would do his own thing, how he wanted to do it. As I talk later on, like I found out later on that, oh, this thing he was doing that everyone else was like, oh, why is he doing it like that? It ended up being the right thing to do. But like some of the things he did, people like criticize and stuff like that because it maybe was slow or something like that. But he was very much like he did what he wanted to do. He ran the game the way he wanted, even if it might not have been the fastest way. And for a while, I mean, like I said, he was the only one, so he didn't really have that pressure to be. No one was forcing him to run the game super optimally. Not that he didn't try, like he found a lot of new things and stuff like that, but he was just doing his own thing. And I like that because that was kind of what I did too. Like when it was just me and him, I was just trying to do my own thing too. Like it was very laid back near the beginning. There wasn't like healthy competition and stuff like that near the beginning.
I mean, yeah, it's sort of like, you know, it stands out to me. There's this whole period in, you know, the original Jak and Daxter games history where it's just Bill Braid, right? And it's almost like this timeline syncing up a little bit, you know, where it's like same period of time, like that 2014 time. And it's just crazy to me because it's just like, I mean, it's a ton of records. I mean, it's a ton of optimization. It's a ton of runs that spans like a period of like 2 years, almost 2 years. When is his last record? Christmas Eve? Oh, that's thematic. One last gift before he disappears, right?
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, it looks that way.
Yeah, I'm looking at dates, but
I have not gonna lie, I have a giant spreadsheet in front of me. So
oh yeah, that one. Yeah, yeah, that's true. I guess it is around that time too, because yeah, I remember around watching Bill play Jak I and stuff like that too. So you're right; it must be right around that same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just, I mean, you said you learned from watching him. Was it just the two of you? Was there more people? I mean, Ricky shows up here a few times.
Yeah, like Ricky was one of the people who, like I said, mostly a Jak III player who would sometimes play 2. I think he played 2 a little bit more before I showed up, but when I showed up, it was pretty much it was just me and Tom Jack. And then eventually when the hover was found, that like got a whole bunch of people excited for like a month or two, and then Unreal stuck around for like a year or two with me, and then we both kind of dropped off since then. And tons of new people have came and went, I think, as well. But that's kind of been the trend with the game. Like, I don't know how many people play Jak III now, because I know there was a huge span of time where it was just goofy, because the stuff that got added to Jak III was ridiculous. And the stuff in Jak I, I look at it and I'm like, how are people still playing this? Like, you have to jump along these little tiny, like, like spots in the lava and stuff like that. But I think decent people playing that. But Jak II, I wouldn't be surprised if it's back down to just a handful once again.
It is interesting, these games that, you know, are they end up, you know, they're the ugly stepchildren, redhead stepchild that lives under the stairs. And they all have these like moments where they become like the most interesting games in their trilogy, right? It's sort of like a revolving theme in other videos that we've done, where we're kind of like, oh, it's like now this game is really cool, right? It's like it has this like speed tech thing that gets discovered and people shift to it. Maybe because there's also a little more like, untampered snow, just like, oh, it's fresh and there's more ground to cover.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me, because that was the reason why I picked it up in the first place. Like, my main thing was like, oh, no one is playing this, so therefore it must have the most room for improvement. Like, I can find they got more potential to find things. I don't have the stress of having to like compete. Should be easy to get into first place. It took me a while, but that might be more to do with me just like hopelessly resetting unless it was perfect. But like yeah, like I definitely agree that like if no one had played Jak II, they would have never found the hover. They wouldn't have found like the other things that were found after that and stuff like that. So it's definitely an element to that. And who knows what they'll find in another 10 years.
Right. So a lot of the people that we're going to end up talking to, they are runners that primarily exist in a time where the run has the hover. Talk to me about what the speedrun is like before the hover, right? Like, I've been watching old runs, and I watched a really long segmented run, like 4 hours, right? Like the very first run.
SDA one. Yeah.
Yeah. That dude's hilarious. He's a walking meme. He's like, no one will ever beat this game single segment.
Yeah,
it's impossible.
Like I think he also there's just it's a segmented run, but it has a whole bunch of deaths in it and stuff like that too.
Yeah, yeah, right. And he actually, it's the only time I've ever seen this. Not to get too off topic, it's the only time I've ever seen this. But before they published that run, he had submitted an incomplete Jak II segmented run, which I had never heard of SDA doing before. But he was like, he was telling them like, this game would be so long it could not fit on a VHS tape. Like it's like it would be an 8-hour run, right? On like 2 tapes. Yeah, it's really interesting. I was reading the I didn't watch any of it. I was reading the liner notes for it.
I've never talked to that person or seen them anywhere, and for some reason I remember that I think somebody has talked to them at some point, but
they were in our Discord.
Oh yeah.
So the story goes that every couple of years he would find his way into like the original Jak and like just kind of like talk like, and he would defend his run and be like, hey, listen, at the time it was really, really good. And then they're like, yeah, but it's like 3 hours. It was like 4 hours, right? And you didn't do Spider Cave because you're afraid of spiders. Like you're it was kind of like.
Oh, he even did Jak 1. Okay.
Yeah. So he did the original Jak 1 run. And then we put our video out and we kind of clowned on him a little bit. And first he showed up in the comments. Then he came to the Discord. And it was really kind of like funny because it's like, I'm like, who is this guy? He's just being very nice right now. And it's like, oh,
he's the guy.
It's that dude. It's the dude who's afraid of spiders.
That's funny.
Yeah. Listen, I don't like spiders either, but I've never not played a game because it had spiders in it. So, we got a little off, but what is the speedrun like? What is the game like to speedrun before hover?
Right. So it's not, if you want a good idea, you should watch there's a category called hoverless, which is made after the hover became popular. And the cool thing about it is like there was some things that we found like right when the hover came out that we never got to use. So there's some stuff in there, but and they blow all of the runs pre-hover out of the water as well. But the runs before the hover weren't as bad as the SDA one, but they like the way I see it is it's like Jak II is a game where you just you're optimizing traveling through the city, getting to the missions, and you're optimizing the missions themselves. So before hover, it was just trying to do everything you possibly could to like not die, because that was a concern. Basically, every death brings you back to the beginning of the mission. So if you die, it's basically a reset. So you can never die. So you want to be good enough to not die, and then you want to either like do it optimally in a way that like you save your ammo, because like you have to fight more before the hover. Now you can like skip over every fight with the hover basically, so ammo isn't a concern. But before, you needed to kind of conserve your ammo so you had enough to bring you through the whole game, and things like that. So it's really, I see pre-hover runs as just being really solid at the game mechanically, like not dying, saving your ammo, getting through the missions as fast as you could. There was skips, but they're not like as crazy as they are now. There's like the one skip in the very beginning where you skip the entire game pretty much, but then after that, it's just they're really minor skips. Like maybe you enter a level and like you can do a little bit of platforming to get to the end. There's a couple like those, but for the most part, it's just knowing how to beat the missions as fast as you can. Whereas with the hover, it's like, so like the comparison, one of the missions I talk about, the fortress mission, before hover, you would go in, you had to like fight your whole way through, do the platforming, etc., etc. Now with the hover, you go in and then you hover out of bounds right to the end and you're done. So that happened to a lot of missions, like basically overnight. As soon as people found out about the hover, it was just, okay, let's look at every mission where we have the jet board. Is there a way that we can skip to the end? And if the answer was yes, which it usually was, that's what we did.
How was the hover discovered?
The story goes that Unreal was just mashing buttons one day. So Unreal was a speedrunner before Jak II. I don't know what game he played before, but the story goes is that he was just mashing buttons one day and he found it. And he actually sent me and the Rixer a message on Twitch. And he was like, oh, I found this thing. I can like infinitely fly. And like, there was kind of like this, like kind of because no one had heard about this guy before within our context. So it was kind of like dismissed / oh no, here we go, another thing. Because I don't think it was in Jak II, but I think one of the other games recently had some big thing where it like, you know, flipped the run on its head. And I feel like, I don't know if this has come up a lot in your other stuff, but at least for me, it's always annoying when you're at like the top of your game and then like something comes in where it's like, oh, now I gotta stop and practice this new thing for weeks before I can like play the game again, basically. So I feel like there was an element of that where it was like, oh, I just want to play the game. I don't want to have to learn this new thing that I know is going to flip everything over. And a month later, I don't think he had a video. I think it was just text of him just saying, I found it. And then he got it a little bit more consistent and he made a video and it was public. And then there was no hiding it at that point. Like other people picked it up and they're like, why didn't you tell us about this? And I think I didn't get the message right away. I think he actually sent it to Tom, Jak, and Ricky. And like a month later, he sent it to me. I think I might have brought it up, but that's a long time ago. But that he just randomly found it. And then it was like a month of trying to figure out, well, how do we do this? Because the first way it felt very random. Like people couldn't consistently get it like they can now. And it took a good amount of time before somebody figured it out. And there was a whole bunch of people who thought, hey, I figured it out. This is the way. And then, you know, after you try it for a while, you realize, no, this is not the way. And eventually we landed on something that was actually good.
So it was like, it was like button mashing and just hoping you got it. What is the actual way to do it?
It has something to do with how you can do. So the way it works is you jump and you basically do two tricks at the same time. Normally you should only be able to do like one trick in the air. Like you jump and you do a spin, or you jump and you do a flip. And people had known that you could do multiple tricks in the air and we use that to just do like longer jumps. But this was something that you could chain. So you would do like one trick and then the second trick, and you could repeat the second trick. And every time you repeat it, you get like a little bit of height. So that's what makes you go up, right? But the way you do that is you have to like, how do you explain it? You like partially input the second trick, I guess, and then you just hold your analog stick in that position. You just mash the button that does the trick, and it just works. Like it'll be interesting because for the last year or so, I've been working with the guys to get the original code for Jak I, and we're just about to start on Jak II. So I'll be able to find the bug for why the hell it works in the first place. But it's just probably something that they didn't check to let you not do a trick infinitely in the air.
All right, CC, you had a question?
It was mainly just how do you perform it? That was what I was going to ask.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll let you ask the next question anyway, because I'm magnanimous.
There we go. So, the hover changed a lot of things, and I think you said initially it was like any mission that has the jet board, it's instantly like, okay, can we get hovers here? Can we use the hovers to just skip the mission, right?
Yeah.
Sort of what in the immediate aftermath, like what are some of the big changes? I think I see oh yeah, just go ahead and tell me what some of the bigger changes were, like off the top of your head.
Okay. Most of them, so it wasn't anything until we get to underport skip. There wasn't anything that was like, this is game breaking, right? It wasn't like, it was, you still had to go to the mission and then it just lets you finish it faster or safer or whatever. And some of those time saves were huge. Like for example, the two biggest one are definitely the two missions, going to the palace, and then right after that the weapons factory levels, because those ones were really long and you had to do a lot of fighting, so lots of people die. Like there's a lot of platforming sections where the guards shoot at you and people would get shot and they would die and they would lose their run. So like those two missions were kind of like the make or break time of the run. Like that's where you would tense up as a runner, like, oh, am I gonna beat it? And if you beat them, chances are you would finish the game. So the hover there changed a lot because it basically made it felt like it made the game very easy. If you were good at the hover, you could do an any percent run at a high level, no problem. And that's why, in my opinion, the world record traded so much at that time, because it wasn't as optimized as it is right now. It was just people going through the game and like not screwing up at that point. I think overall, maybe it saved immediately like between 5 to 10 minutes or something like that, with those two missions being huge, like at least 1 or 2 minutes each. But most of the other ones were very minor. But it was very quickly after it was found that basically all of them were found. And then for a long time, basically the only thing people found was like, oh, I can hover over this wall and I can save like 2 seconds, or I can save 1 second. It was very dry until something like underport skip and stuff like that was found.
I'm not super familiar. What is underport skip?
So underport skip is, and in my notes I forgot who found it, so it's something that maybe you'll find out from other people or something like that. But
Sure.
It's a mission that's split into two. So you start off in the city and you go down into like this underwater area, and then you have to go the first half. You have to go through with like the slow, like robot suit thing, and then you get to the end, and then it's an auto scroller escort mission. So underport skip lets you in that section. Like I said, you go down an elevator into the underground area. Instead of going into the elevator, you do this out of bounds manipulation where you skip the elevator and the level is like partially loaded, and then you initiate a hover, and while you're hovering the rest of the level loads in, but you're already out of bounds, so you can make it straight to the end. Well, not the end of the first part, so you still have to do the auto scrolling section. But you skip that really slow part. So that was like 2 or 3 minutes, probably.
Okay.
A good amount of time.
Is
And it
that
was
kind of like the
something
beginning
novel.
of?
Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, is that kind of like the beginning of when things started? Like, okay, now we're gonna start getting into shenanigans, right? Like out of bounds stuff, or
Yeah, I guess so. Like that was kind of like the biggest thing since the hover was found was under port skip, and then after that, I don't really feel like, unless I'm missing something new, I don't feel like there's been something at that level since then. Like
Okay.
people started doing the way people started saving time after that was they did the race skips, which
Mhm.
for a long time people like said were too hard to do and stuff like that. So they started doing that. And then there was a skip people found with the crew boss, where what's it called? You could force him into a wall somehow and he would die right away. So you would basically skip the boss fight. But no one had ever been successful at replicating that. So they still don't do that, to my understanding. They just do kind of like halfway there, where there's this way that you can shoot him multiple times on the same frame. So you skip one of the phases. So
Gotcha.
there's been like nothing since underport skip that's been like the biggest thing, and it's just been things that people have already known about, but they just didn't do them for so long because they thought they were hard. So
Okay.
I feel like that was like the end of that era of people finding new things.
Okay. By the way, it looks like in your notes you say you believe that underport skip was found by Dex.
Yeah, that's the name that comes to mind, but I'm careful. I don't
Fair
want
Fair enough.
to say that
We don't want to give Dex any credit he doesn't have coming to him. I agree.
I don't mind giving people false credit. I just don't want to make people upset that actually found it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough. Sorry. I'm looking through my notes. So there's a few tricks that honestly I just kind of need someone to explain. We had them explained before in an interview. Unfortunately, we lost that recording. So I just need it for my benefit. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you could explain some of the early things just for my personal benefit, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure.
I think all of it's in your notes. I just kind of need a synopsis that's good enough to write into the script. So obviously Mars tomb skip, right? That's the big one. It skips, a huge swath of the game. How does it work, and how do you do it?
Okay. So the way it works, I believe, the game has like a built-in level select. We think that most of the percentage warps are a result of that. Like when you beat the game, you can pick any level you want, basically. So the way Mars Tomb skip works is the level Mars Tomb, which is right in the middle of the city, which is convenient. You only get access to there at like 2/3. Like it's in the final act of the game. The game is split into 3 acts. So it's right there. So you can do some you can use the vehicles to jump over the wall, and at that point, like, it's pretty much, you just basically do a very simple jump. Now they do it more complicated now. Like if you watch a run nowadays, you'll see them like they'll like wait to jump off the, they'll do like they'll jump into the death plane and stuff like that to save time. But really all you have to do is you just jump over the wall with the zoomer, and you just jump into the airlock, and you just go down the elevator, and you're done. And then once you're down there, the door won't open for you, so you have to do like a little bit of clipping over the wall. But that has been known for an incredibly long time. You can find like, I think some speed, like when I started, I heard like speedrunners trying to take credit for it, but you can find like super old YouTube videos and stuff like that of like people on like old cheat code websites and stuff like that, saying, oh, you just have to jump over the wall and do it. Like it's pretty simple to do. So, and then once you get in there, all you have to do is when you hit a checkpoint and you die, then you'll get the actual percentage warp. So you'll get all the guns you should have got up to that point. You'll get the jetboard. You'll get all that stuff.
Is it just because it gives it to you because the game's like, oh, you're here, and this is what you would have if you got to this point?
Right. We think that's how it works because, like I said, probably something to do with how that level select feature works. Like the game has to have something built in to like put you, because you can normally select that level. So surely there must be something built in where it's like, okay, you have this checkpoint, so we're going to give you all the things you normally should have, and we're just able to exploit that for the speedrunning. There are other percentage warps in the game that work exactly the same, but they're all earlier than that point. They're at like 20% and 30%, not 66% in. So those don't really see much use.
Yeah, I think it was Sicky that was talking to us yesterday about maybe like the Holy Grail would be finding one like for later in the game.
Yeah, you probably heard of construction site skip is the one that people want, because if you got that one, so there's a level at the very end of the game, like it's right before you go to the final boss, and all it is an area you walk into. There's a cutscene, that's it. You leave, you go fight the final boss. So, and it's once again, that area is accessible from within the city. So if somebody found that, it would probably be like an under 10-minute run right away. And I feel like the category would be completely dead because there is not anything difficult about all of that section. Like it would be optimized pretty fast. I guess one thing I should also add, like Mars Tomb Skip is kind of hard for a casual player, not for the jumping over the wall part, but like you have to know a bunch of tricks to there's barriers in the city that kind of gate you into certain sections, so you have to there's some out of bounds tricks that are kind of obscure to get around those barriers to make your way to the Mars Tomb area.
And those would be like red barrier skip and yellow barrier skip?
Yep,
that's right.
Yep.
All right. And how do you do those? You just, is it the same thing? You get a vehicle and you have to like jump out, or?
Yeah, there's like certain parts of the walls don't have collision, so they basically all involve you being on a vehicle and like jumping higher than they expected to just get around the things or clip through the wall. And the game is very easy to out of bounds in. So yeah. There's
the walls
also
are just a suggestion.
Yeah. There's many ways that you can do them too. You can even do it where you kind of stand at the barrier and you try to hijack a vehicle, and it puts you through the barrier and you die, and sometimes you get the checkpoint on the other side, kind of thing. So there's a few ways to do them.
You know, you say that and I'm almost like, I think I might have accidentally done that. I've done that in a few games where like you like get a vehicle up against a wall and you jump out and you like just get whoop to the other side.
Yeah, there's a really weird one too where the palace mission, which is another mission that people have really tried to skip into early. That wouldn't be as good as construction site skip, but it would be like pretty fast too. Where there's an old video somebody found where you can like put a vehicle next to the door, and then you can ledge grab on the back of the vehicle, and you can just wait for like 5 minutes until it randomly spins and pushes you through the door, and it just opens. But then it's useless. But
I love the idea that it's like, come on, my vehicle, if it just randomly turns a second earlier.
Yeah, it would be horrible if it worked.
It's like that Melee meme where it's just port priority because everyone's so good at Fox. Right, CC?
Yeah. The year is 20XX.
Yeah. I saw it today. I don't remember what stream I was watching, but all right. CC, your turn. Ask a question.
Let's see here. You were running what year was, like 2014, 2015, 16 era?
Yeah, that's when I kind of started. And
Okay.
I stopped around 2018, apparently. Mid 2018.
Okay.
Do you say apparently because you didn't like have this big retirement party?
Yes, but also like I can't believe the years when I look back at it. Like how I've felt the last 3-4 years is like, oh, I need to get back to playing the game. And then when I look at these years, I'm like, oh, it's been so long since I haven't played the game.
Yeah. Time will catch up to you like that. But so I know we talked about Tom Jack was like one of the only people running, and then Unreal was there, I believe. Unreal was after you, right?
Unreal
So-
was there with me.
With
I think
you.
I stuck around a little bit longer than Unreal.
Okay. Was there anyone else of note to talk about?
Well, I think you've already talked to most. Like you've already talked to like Siki came around near the end where Unreal left, so you've already talked to him.
Yep.
And you've talked to Ouija, who was kind of there at the same time and is now still there today.
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to talk to Nitroff, which was there for a little bit of time around the time when he went to GDQ with it and stuff like that. And
Yeah,
like,
Sorry,
go ahead.
So Nitroff said no. So if you want to talk a little bit about Nitroff, that'd be helpful.
Well, he ran the game like a little bit along, like before I started. So his run was like on the board before, like when I first started the game. I don't remember what place. I guess we could find it if we really wanted to. But he seemed like he hadn't played the game for a really long time. And then when the hover came out, like a lot of people got interested in it, and one of those people was him. So he started playing the game, and he was just trading records back and forth with Tom Jack and stuff like that at the time, because Tom Jack was actually legitimately probably the person who figured out the hover the best, which is kind of unfortunate because, like I said, he didn't really talk to us, so we didn't really know. we knew that he had it pretty good, but we didn't know what he was doing for a while. But so yeah, he was running the game a lot, and I think he burnt out fast because I assume with Twitch you can't see them, but a lot of his runs died to crashes. He got very upset many times, I remember.
Unfortunate. I'm trying to get a good landscape or a good idea of the landscape of when you were running and who to talk about. Doesn't the run have like one record that stands for a long time? Or am I thinking of something else?
Like any category?
I meant
You're thinking of something else, pal.
I must be thinking of something else. Never
You
mind.
have the spreadsheet. You can pull it up.
I do. I'll get it in a second. I didn't have my notes open. I'm sorry. I was thinking later on. Sorry. I was thinking of Septurna. Okay.
Yeah. So, just to make sure that I kind of got this part right. So it's kind of like this is the game that's not really, this isn't anyone's bag, right? No one's making this their main game. It's basically Tom Jack, and then you come in. And there are other people that come in, but they're really playing one of the other two games, right? It's like, like it's the game that people don't want to run because it's hard and it's long and whatever, blah, blah, blah. But then you get hovers, and then people start to kind of pour in a little bit because now the game has a little more to it, right? That kind of feel about right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like not only is it like this new thing that people can experiment with it, but a lot of the people who picked it up when the hover came out, they got frustrated and quit just as fast too, because at the time we didn't really know how to do the hover consistently. So they remembered the game that was frustrating, they were dying in the missions and all that kind of stuff, and then they came back to it with like, oh, this is going to be so easy now, I can skip all those missions. But then they only got the hover like half the time, so like they kind of quit for the same reason. But yeah, you're right, most people did not make this their main game. I think the amount of people who have made it their main game is very small. Like Tom, Jack, me. I don't know, like Unreal, and then I don't know how everybody else new feels about it. Like, I don't know if Headstrong considers Jak II his main game because he played Jak I forever. Like, I have no idea. But at the time, it was really just those three people who I could ever say picked it as their main game. Like, I never played, I think I've done one Jak III run, and I've never finished a Jak I run.
There you go. Hey, listen, me either, and I'm working hard to keep it that way.
Well, I would never want to try to finish one now.
I work at a car dealership, and whenever they ask me if I have sold a car as a joke, I don't work as a salesman, but I'm like, nope, and I'm working hard to keep it that way. Unfortunately, that place will just eat you. Anyway, enough about my car dealership. You know, you talked a little bit about how, like, okay, hovers, on these missions would save X amount of time, but looking at all the records, there isn't one record that really like stands out as being like dramatically faster, right? Is there like a little bit of a skill gap while y'all like kind of figure it out? Does the run go from being really optimized and like whatever to being like it's not as optimized now because there's now these tricks in the game that we're just not as good at? Like, help me out a little bit.
It's Jak II is perpetually in this state where you're always 2 to 3 minutes off your sum of bests. I don't know what it is right now with the current world record, but it's always like in the pursuit of getting that run that feels really good where you're like maybe a minute off or so. You just move the goalposts. And that's been the story since I started. Like, I like looking back to the SDA run. It's like, why is he walking around? Why is he dying and not restarting the run? And it's like any run in Jak II, even my own, I look back and I'm like, oh, I'm losing so much time. It's terrible. But it, like, at the time, it didn't feel like it was that egregious of time loss. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just people getting. There definitely is a huge skill gap. Like, I think people that first start the game, especially now when they have to do things like do these insane race skips where if you make like a slight input mistake, you're dead basically. Like, you have to. A lot of new runners, I think, will skip out on tricks. Like, they won't do certain things that will kill their run, and then once they get confident, then right away they have like a whole bunch of time save opens up. But when I first started, it wasn't really like that. Like, there was no easy way to kind of finish these missions because people were kind of already doing them the easy way. They were running through, maybe they were like not running, but they were punching or roll jumping, but they were just going through the missions normally. So it was just a matter of like not dying or not running into walls in the city and stuff like that. Whereas now it's like you can kind of pick and choose to make for beginners it's easier, but then there's that huge skill gap between the people who are already consistent at all those tricks and they're just trying to execute that perfectly and also not screw up on basic stuff just like before.
It's almost like it has a low skill floor where you can kind of go, like, you can play at your own pace, and add in whatever tricks you want to add in. But it also has like a high skill ceiling,
Yeah, like the game has, and a lot of people did that for a long time. Like I said, Tom Jack kind of did his own thing. There was the ability to, because you're always so far away from your sum of best, you can say things like, oh, that person is doing that really hard trick, but he's still 2 minutes off of his gold splits. So I don't really have to do that if I don't want to. I can just make up for it in other departments. And I assume that ability is getting less and less nowadays.
Right. Okay. CC, do you have anything?
Yeah. This is probably my last question. I don't think I have anything else. But in your time, are there any runs that stand out as being like, man, that was a crazy run? Not even just yours, could be yours, or could be like, did Tom Jack get some crazy run that was like, yo, that was crazy? You know, like that was a landmark run, more or less, one that we should really sit down and look at.
I think if I had to pick one, a lot of them felt like just better optimization over time. But if I had to pick one, I would probably say the first run Tom Jack did after he figured out the hover, because that was one that because if you can find runs from back then, if any were actually finished, what you would find is like people would go to the spot with the hover, they'd stand there and they would like hesitate and they would like set up because they knew that they were gonna like fail it a bunch of times. Whereas when he did his run, if I recall correctly, he was confident. He just went at it. He knew that he was going to get it first try. So that was like definitely, like you said, we have to look at this one. And like this is the new level for playing the game kind of thing.
Okay.
All the ones, there's never kind of been a run in Jak II where it's like somebody found something and nobody knew about it beforehand, right? So there was never like, nobody ever dropped a run where it's like all of a sudden, oh, I found this new skip and nobody had heard about it. Everybody kind of knew where it was coming, so it wasn't surprising, or they were actively trying to get it themselves. So it was just, oh, he beat me to it kind of thing.
Gotcha.
But if I had to pick one, I'd say that's probably one of those ones near the early hover era. Is probably one of the better ones.
If you could maybe pinpoint, I think I say it's like late 2014. Do you have any? Do you remember like, oh, it was in October, November, December that it was found or started to be implemented? Do you have any idea?
It's got to be. I think that spreadsheet might have a good timeline. Like
This one
whenever Tom Jack got his.
I think it's this one, CC, just because this is the first time they put
hovers.
Yeah. There was definitely a little bit of time before it was a thing. I could probably go back and check my Twitch messages. It's probably one of the better ways to do it, but if for a better date. But it was pretty soon out, like definitely within the same year that he did it.
Okay, I'll look around. It's probably right here. Like I see, there's a couple of runs, and looks like.
Well, the video before it, CC, the title is "No Hover Glitch." So,
okay,
all the hover tricks are success. Okay, yes, this is the first one with the hover glitch.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I asked Headstrong when she sent me this spreadsheet, like, do the lines mean anything? And it was apparently held over from another spreadsheet, so I don't think these lines actually mean anything.
No, I don't think they mean anything either.
I'm like, because on the original sheet we did, there were these sort of like lines that were like, this is a different era or whatever. Like, this is where it changed, and I'm like, yeah, these just kind of feel like they were placed randomly. So I'm just gonna ignore those anyway. So okay, yeah, that's a good. You're gonna put your star.
I was looking at that.
Yeah, he drew that yesterday. We were talking to Siki, and I'm like, I was watching him do it, and it was huge, and I'm like, what the fuck? And then he made it tiny. So I don't know if you can copy and paste it. That's funny though.
I might be able to. I'll just put a little highlight on that.
Yeah.
But first with hovers right here. So, okay.
Yeah, but you know, it's kind of crazy because it's like it's all the hover tricks, but it's only 10 seconds faster. You know, it's like it's kind of like, all right, well, we know, but we have that. It's just like you said. It's like, all right, well, we're always 2 or 3 minutes away from the best we can be. It's just chipping away again. You know, like because the next record that he dropped 6 days later is a 1:11:41. You know.
Oh yeah.
So like. It's like,
oh yeah,
Okay, like the first one is just the first time he got him in a run.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
like I don't care if I only get under the the what's the
Limbo? What?
limbo bar? Yeah, like, I don't care if my nipples graze the bar. I'm getting under this fucking thing.
Yeah, and there was things that were like, as I kind of listed out there, they weren't doing every single hover the first day. Like people were like, these runs they were so like days apart, like you said.
Mhm.
So it's like people were just doing things as fast as they could while trying to learn it, while trying to find new things and get better at them. And like then later on, we found a few more things. Like there's the people call it robot skip at the end of the factory level that like skipped even more of that mission. And then we found like the underport skip and stuff like that. And then we started doing crazy stuff in the city when me and Unreal were trading back and forth. So it's just, yeah, I think at first it was just people just wanted to get a run, and yeah, I have no idea what the footage is like. I'm sure a lot of it is like, I wouldn't be surprised if he has a death somewhere in there and he just kept going because he knew that he could make it up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a good point.
It looks like without any other major tricks being found in that first month in the December, they save 5 minutes. Yeah, so it sounds like they
just do it a little bit at a time.
Yeah, there's no big jump. It's funny though, because the one before the hover it's only a 10-second world record. You'd think that with like 5 minutes of save that they would save more than 10 seconds, but they just wanted to get. Looks like Tom Jack just wanted to get run, just anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And then lastly, I think we talked a little bit about Unreal, but just if you want to, some color commentary about Unreal, because I don't think anyone else is going to talk about them.
Oh yeah, I can, and I think I don't even know how to get a hold of him anymore. I don't know if you have been, but yeah, Unreal, like he obviously found the tricks. That was good, but he was a really good runner, and like I guess he was a pretty good friend too. Like I didn't really have a close relationship with anybody from the community until Unreal came around, and we like around the time where we were going back and forth, it felt really good because it didn't feel like a rivalry or anything like that. It just like we were helping each other, and any percent is kind of a boring category. I find like almost all of the stuff we found, because any percent was so exhausted at that point, was we were just looking through every other route of the game, like the ones where you do all the missions and collect everything and stuff like that. And we found so many like little things that we could do with the hover there and stuff like that. So like for that year or so that like we were both around together, we were just always finding stuff. And like a meme in the community is you might hear people say like unlisted strats, and it's because me and him had like playlists of videos that were unlisted, and we were only sharing them around with each other and stuff like that for a while. So yeah, it was a fun time. He was a good guy. He got I think he got burned out as well. Like there was one run he had where it was a world record, I think, probably, or else he wouldn't have got upset. But like the video ended up being corrupted, and there was like one day where he got the world record, and then like it was either hours or like the next day I beat it and stuff like that. But yeah, it was fun to play the game with him. I think he's on to other things, like as I am now, I guess, too.
Did you open a gym as well, like Tom Jack?
That's the Jak II thing.
Everyone retires and opens a gym.
Not yet.
Well, there you go. All right, I think that's the end of my questions. Was there anything that you're like, man, you didn't ask me about that that we should have asked you?
I don't think so. You asked me a lot of things I didn't think of beforehand, and like you said, I was pretty thorough. But that was just to refresh. I just like watched one of the runs just to try to refresh my memory of what the heck happened. But like, if you need like video links, or if you want video clips for a certain thing, or you want more context on something, like don't hesitate to ask, because I can probably try to help you out.
Awesome. There's invariably, with every video we do, there's something that we're going to describe, and it's important that we describe it, but it's really hard to find video for it. It's easy. I don't know if I'm explaining that right. Basically, it's just like the most recent video we're doing right now, the one before Jack, it comes out in 2 days. Yeah, it comes out Friday. There's this whole thing called gate skip and tie the Tasmanian tiger, where essentially we had to really describe the gate and like everything around the gate to kind of set up the glitch. But there's really no point in the run where they look at the gate, you know?
Oh, really? Huh.
Well, it's like they just kind of are like they're doing the trick, right? Because they're not gonna like, oh, and this is the tree, and this is the rock, you know. So it's like there's a lot of stuff like that where it's like there's always usually a tutorial someone made, you know, or something that
Right.
shows it off a little more.
Yeah, like I have a tutorial on my channel, but it probably doesn't cover everything, and maybe, like you said, it has bad angles or maybe like a bad description. So yeah, I can see that being annoying, but yeah, like if you need anything, I'll try to help.
Thanks, man. We appreciate that. CC, do you have anything before we wrap up?
No, that's it.
All right, and Craig didn't shit the bed, which is great news.
Woo.
I'm gonna go ahead and kill Craig. Hang on. Craig, be gone. All right, where is it?